Fatima Ibrahim, you are party secretary at the Badani Party and responsible for gender issues and human rights. How would you describe the human rights situation in Somaliland today?
It's come through many stages. We've come through civil war, which of course there was the genocides and human rights atrocities. Then we had the government, which passed on to the next government, so forth. So our democratic development has gone very well. Human rights abuses are still going on, of course. There are still arrests without due process. There are arrests for very simple and minute actions. So really that is an area which we need a lot more work to be put into. 6-7 years ago, in the previous when Dahir Riyala was president, we had over 20 human rights organizations working in Somaliland. So it was a very vibrant human rights organizations that was working. Now we only have one. So within the 7 years, we've deteriorated down to only one organization, which we really need to address and hopefully get the international communities to help us to build more of the human rights organizations, so that there's that check and balance to check what the government is doing.
What is the reason why they all have closed down? Is it pressure from the government?
Pressure, absolutely, yes.
What do you think will happen in the coming 5 years? Are you optimistic or pessimistic?
Oh my goodness. It really depends. I mean, this government has only been in power for the last 7 months, and we're hoping that they won't be as bad as the previous president. We're hoping that the human rights organizations will have the courage to be able to resume their work. But at the moment, we still don't see any improvements. So I'm optimistic, but then I don't know.
With some reservations?
With a lot of reservations.
Is international context a way of promoting human rights in Somaliland? Journalists coming to the countries, organizations coming to the country, exchanges between parliamentarians and so on?
You know, we had many trainers coming in, especially through the UN. When I was working with UNDP, we brought in the BBC to come and train. We had other human rights organizations in the UK come in and give training. So there was that there was that exchange. Lately, there isn't. Why the UN agencies are not doing that anymore, or why there is less, we don't know. Most probably because the funds have been diverted to Somalia, and a lot less is coming into Somaliland, which are one of the reasons why we are traveling around, speaking to foreign ministries, the European Union, trying to drum up support for Somaliland. And to be able to help with the democratic development, institutional building, good governance, the rights of women, trying to get more work, because the thing is we have a lot of unemployment for our youth. Unemployment, then children get disenfranchised. They will go through hoops and loops to get into Europe. So that means that they will go through illegal migrations and being arrested, die in the sea, being sold into slavery, and so many unthinkable things. And what we're trying to do is get the international community to look at giving humanitarian aid in a different way. So instead of just actually giving humanitarian aid, they would be given development so that the Somaliland government and people can then provide jobs, and we will be more of a productive society rather than a consumer society. We have a lot of floods, flash floods, cyclones like the one that we had very recently, but we have no watershed management. So that water rips out all the trees, the shrubbery, erosion of the earth, and then falls into the sea. Whereas if we could harness that water, we would have reservoirs, we'd have dams, and then we would be able to self-sustain our farmers.
I don't know if I've spelled this right. Female circumcision has been prohibited in Somaliland.
It still happens through the black market,
Yeah.
but we've more or less been able to drum that out.
So you mean it's very unusual now?
Very unusual now. It's not as it was 15 years ago. Mm-hmm.
That is a tremendous success.
It is, and that is due to, the thing is, before people used to think that this was a religious attribute and that a woman had to be circumcised. It was called halalis, which means that there is some prohibited part of a woman that needs to be cut out. We had the sheikhs and the religious leaders have come on board and stating that that is not the case, that there is no prohibited part of a woman's body that needs to be cut, that it is haram actually, it is forbidden for this to happen, and that has gone a long way to stopping circumcision.
Thank you very much.
Well.